What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today we are transitioning away from the NFL draft for a little bit and focusing on the best available free agent targets for the New York Jets right now. The Jets roster is in a really good spot. I'm very happy with the state of the roster right now when you look at both sides of the ball on offense and defense, and especially special teams. There we go. A lot of specials in there. I'm very pleased with where the New York Jets roster is currently, but that doesn't mean that they won't necessarily be active in May, June, and into July before training camp starts, rounding out this roster and completing the depth. That's what they just need right now. They need depth at a few more positions, and we will talk through the areas of need for the New York Jets. We will start on the offensive side of the ball, and let's take a look at the wide receiver room. So as of right now, I guess I'll try to give you a particular order. The starting trio looks like Wilson, Mike Williams, Malachi Corley, with Lazard, Brownlee, Gibson, and Irv Charles as your depth options from 4 all the way through 8 back there, depending on whatever order you want to put them in. But the reason why you can make an argument that the Jets could use some depth at this spot is because Mike Williams might not be ready to go at the start of the season. He tore his ACL early in 2023, and it seems like he might take it very slow in the beginning of training camp, which is fine, which means if he takes it slow in training camp and into the preseason, he's probably going to start slow, and if he has one bad week of rehab, he might be in jeopardy for missing week 1. If that's the case, that probably bumps up Allen Lazard into your starting trio at wide receiver because, well, you're not going to bump up Gibson. You might like Gibson more, but he's a slot just like Malachi Corley is. So if you want that outside receiver that Mike Williams is, well, then Allen Lazard bumps up. And maybe you have faith in Allen Lazard rebounding with Aaron Rodgers. That's entirely possible. But this is just an exercise where we're going through the roster and trying to look for areas where you can make the case for more depth. So I'll give you 2 names that maybe the New York Jets should take a look at. The first, Tyler Boyd, a very popular name amongst Jet fans during free agency. He is still on the market. 667 yards and 2 touchdowns last season. Now, while he is a productive player, he was once a 1,000-yard receiver, and even when he began to tail off a little bit because the Bengals add Jamar Chase, they also add T. Higgins, he remained productive and has been like a high 600 to 800-yard receiver over the last few years. But here's the thing with Tyler Boyd. As much as I like him, and I do really like him as a wide receiver, he plays a majority of his snaps from the slot. 85% came from the slot last year, 80% plus over the last 4 seasons. So if you're looking for that outside guy, Tyler Boyd probably not that guy. If you're just looking for a extra veteran body and you don't really care as much if it's slot versus outside, Tyler Boyd's still a good name and worth taking a look at. This next name is going to scare some Jet fans, but as a 4th or 5th wide receiver option, not nearly as scary, and just allow me to talk through it, please. Marquez ValdesSchuster, I know, a former Aaron Rodgers teammate who has struggled, which isn't ideal, obviously. I'm not saying sign MVS and he is, expect him to be a top 2 receiving target. If he's your 5th wide receiver, maybe a little bit of a different story. He had 315 yards and a touchdown last year. In the playoffs, he was very good. 8 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown. Now, MVS plays out wide. He is not really a slot receiver. He had 3 drops last year that were pretty memorable. Unfortunately, in prime time, he had a couple big drops and some big moments, which isn't great. But why this stylistic of a player would be a fit for the New York Jets? So he's a deep threat on the outside, which is something the Jets don't really have a whole lot of. And he's kind of like, he would clear out the middle of the field for Garrett Wilson and Malachi Corley. That's essentially what MVS would be used for. Again, I'm not saying MVS is going to play a whole lot of snaps, but if you were to bring him in, could he give you 15 quality snaps a game and you just send him out wide and let him rip roar down the sideline. He has really good speed. Maybe Rodgers hits him on a deep ball once a game or something like that, or takes a shot deep towards him once a game. But having that deep threat presence outside makes life a little bit easier for Garrett Wilson and Malachi Corley, who like to do their work over the middle of the field a little bit more. So, again, am I saying Marquez ValdesSchantling's my favorite player in the NFL, favorite wide receiver in the NFL? No, don't get that twisted. But can he serve a purpose in this offense if they're looking for a deep threat to potentially spell Mike Williams if he's not ready to go at the start of the year? Yeah, and there's an obvious connection there with both Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett. Let's take a look at the offensive line next. Offensive tackle room looks pretty much set with Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Olu Fashanu, Carter Warren, and you still have Max Mitchell. Interior offensive line, not as set. You have Simpson, Tittman, AVT, and Schweitzer right now pretty much as your depth. So the Jets could use another body, and I'm kind of interested in bringing Conor McGovern back as a backup, not as a starter. He played in 7 games last year, 8 pressures and a sack allowed. He was the Jets starting center from 2020 through 2023. I don't think he's a starter at this point in his career anymore. But if you can bring him back on a 1-year deal for less than $2 million, which is what they did last year, I think it makes sense. He knows the facility. He knows the team. He knows the offense. It's a very easy transition. It's not like if you were to go out and sign Dalton Reisner or Andreas Pete. Like, those are other free agent names that fans like to bring up on the interior offensive line. But at least you know with McGovern, like, he's been here and the chemistry is there a little bit. Again, am I saying Conor McGovern is a starter for this team? No, he's not at this point in his career. But can he serve as a backup center that's probably better than Wes Schweitzer? Yeah, I would absolutely think so. And as I said, right now, Wes Schweitzer is your top interior backup, which could probably use a little bit more there if we're being honest. And I don't know if I feel all that comfortable in Schweitzer or Xavier Newman or someone like that having to come in and play if one of these guys gets banged up. All right, let's talk about 2 spots on the defense. First is edge, and I know what you might be thinking. Well, didn't they just have a whole lot? And yes, they do. But right now, top 4 edges after trading John Franklin Myers, Jermaine Johnson, Hassan Reddick, Will McDonald, Michael Clemens. They have a good top 3. They have a solid top 3 options. I like that. But if the Jets think that Michael Clemens is going to give you the kind of production or even 75% of what JFM gave you, they're probably mistaken. And someone that they were very interested in last year who ended up signing in Atlanta was Calais Campbell, who was, I know he's up there in age, he's in his late 30s now at this point, but still a damn good, solid football player. He had 7 sacks and 42 pressures. He is great against the run. He's similar to John Franklin Myers to where he can play the edge or kick inside. If you're looking for a JFM replacement, Calais Campbell is the closest thing on the market. Yeah, there's other names out there like Yannick Ngakoue, who's been teased to the New York Jets for half a decade, it feels like, but he's not really a one-for-one swap of what JFM's role was in this defense. You don't need another speed edge rusher. That's what you have Reddick and McDonald for. Jermaine Johnson's solid against the run. Calais Campbell, I think, would be a wise addition to this team. There were a lot of interest in it last year. They were very, very interested in bringing him in last year. If they can get him to come in, I think that'd be an easy and obvious fit. The last spot that we should talk about is safety. So Chuck Clark, Tony Adams, Dashin Davis, and Jarek Bernard-Converse are your top 4 safeties right now. I'm a big Chuck Clark fan, but he's coming off an ACL injury. He missed all of last season. Tony Adams was okay last year. He wasn't stellar, but he was fine. I like Dashin Davis for depth, but there's a lot of times the Jets go 3 safeties, and I think they could use a little bit more there in the room. There are 2 names that I'm going to mention here. Both kind of play more the free safety role, but Quandre Diggs, who spent a ton of time in Seattle, was very, very good for them over the years. 95 tackles last season. He allowed a 71.4 reception percentage, 247 yards allowed in coverage, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. He was a Pro Bowler from 2020 through the 2022 season. You also have Justin Simmons, who had 70 tackles last year, 63.9 reception percentage, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns allowed, 3 interceptions. He had 5+ interceptions from 2020 to 2022, and there were a few second-team All-Pros mixed in there as well for Justin Simmons. I don't really want to break the bank on adding safety depth, so if Simmons and Diggs are holding out for still a relatively big contract, I'm good there. I would say just pass, but if you can get either one of those guys on a relatively cheap contract, then I would be in on it. The Jets, as I mentioned, they do a lot of 3 safety looks, and having Simmons or Diggs out there in the 3 safety looks probably makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, I would say anyway. So, yes, the defense is very, very good, but they could use probably another body at edge and probably another body at safety if you really wanted to. So those are my spots and my players that I am looking for. Sound off in the comments below with some positions that you would like to see the Jets add some depth at. And if so, what players are you targeting? Let me know. Subscribe if you're new. Please give the video a like before you go. I'll catch you guys next time.